Welcome to the Policy, Economic Development, Agriculture Committee. Today is Monday, November 13th, and it is 9:06 a.m., and we are beginning our meeting. Please silence all cell phones and noise-making devices. Today, we have with us my Vice Chair, Stacy Crivello.
Hello and good morning, Chair.
Good morning. Bob Carroll.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning, Mr. Carroll. Mr. Alika Atai.
Good morning, Chair.
Mr. Mike White, our Council Chair.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here. And Kelly King.
Good morning, Chair.
I believe that Ellie Cochran is on her way, and Ricky Hokama and Don Guzman are excused. Today, we also have from our administration, John Buck, Executive Assistant to the Mayor, and we also have, or will have, David Underwood, Director of Personnel Services. We have our first Deputy Corp Counsel, Ed Kushi. Thank you for being here. Our staff, Legislative Analyst, Shelly Espelita, Committee Chair, Clarita Balala, and our district offices, Don Lono, Denise Fernandez, and Ella Elkhan. Good morning. Today on our agenda, everyone, we have 4 items, and I would like to let you know that our 4 items are, the first item is designating La'akea Poipoi as a Native Hawaiian traditional and customary practices expert to the Molokai Planning Commission, PEA 221. Then we also have 3 nominations for the Molokai Planning Commission, and it is PEA 219. Members, I want you to know in advance that we have received word that one of the commissioners who were nominated is going to be submitting a withdrawal, and it is for Luann Langford Favorito, which is also on our agenda. Then we have PEA 4, which is a Maui County Legislative Package, a resolution regarding victims' witness. And then we have PEA 27, establishing additional qualifications for county administrative heads appointed by the mayor. Thank you, everyone. We have a heavy agenda and some testifiers. Ms. Cochran just joined us.
Good morning, Chair Allah.
Thank you. For individuals wishing to testify, please sign up at the table outside. We have our lights are working, so everyone will have 3 minutes. I always say it's like a traffic light. Green means go, orange means you have 30 seconds, and red is stop and please complete. And so at this time, I'd like to take up our first testifier, which is Ms. Kimberly Scott, testifying on PEA 41. Thank you, Ms. Scott, for being here. Is it working?
Aloha Maui County Council members. I am enclosing several letter quotes from victims across the state of Hawaii written in 2016 regarding the need for victims' rights. Please, before deciding the fate of this proposal, read the words of a community crying out for your help. I hope these examples serve to dissuade you from the opinion that J.D. Kim espoused in the comments requested of him by this council, specifically his assessment that there is a lack of necessity for victims to be able to enforce their rights through civil action. The necessity exists quite plainly, as the letters will prove. I have also enclosed a copy of the Survivor Survey for Public Policy Reform 2017, which includes a summary that clearly shows the opinion of the victims is in conflict with J.D. Kim's assessments. J.D. Kim also questions the suitability of subjecting our department employees to civil liability at the whim of a victim who feels that they have been treated unfairly by the criminal justice system. In response, I will quote Attorney General Janet Reno, who said while testifying for victims' rights, "I have worked with very dedicated prosecutors who, when they heard the prospect of victims' rights amendment, said, 'I will never be able to do it.' But if you just work with victims, bring in the victims, have victims tell what it is like, you begin to change things." She also said, "Prosecutors know how to do the job and enforce the Constitution, and when they don't, there should be remedies available." The verbiage J.D. Kim chooses when describing the needs or perceptions of a victim as whims is in and of itself very telling. This describes perfectly the attitude J.D. Kim has fostered in the Maui County Prosecutor's Office, which is not to say all prosecutors that work for his office agree with his sentiment or act on it. His statement decides presumptively that victims' feelings are whims. J.D. Kim seems to be presenting two conflicting statements. He says that our prosecutors are held to a higher standard than other licensed attorneys. If this is so, then why would he have concerns about his employees having trivial conflicts with victims? The ability to file a civil suit does not mean that victims would win, and likely there would be some type of arbitration between victim and prosecutors. But that is the point here for Maui Prosecutor's Office. They do not wish to be held accountable in any way, nor do they wish to hear victims' voice and opinion. J.D. Kim claims that Maui Victim Witness Division leads the state of Hawaii in its duty to enforce the provision of HRS 801D for victims and witnesses. I looked online and could find nothing to support that. I do want to say that one of my personal experiences with J.D. Kim over 801D, he literally, in response to me not being told on 8 occasions, separate occasions, that my daughter had a trial a trial date coming up, he told me that they would try harder next time. As this has never happened throughout the trial, nothing has changed. I have more to say, and I had a problem with my computer last night, so I will be making copies to pass out to everyone, confirming everything that I have in here. Mahalo for your time.
Thank you. Anyone have questions?
I do, Chair.
Ms. King.
Questions?
Thank you for being here and for your testimony. So I just wanted to clarify that you're testifying in support of?
Yes, I am.
Okay, the bill, and your reference is to the letter sent in by J.D. Kim
Correct.
to the council?
Correct.
Because I can't read all of one of those is behind, but
Oh, sorry.
that's okay. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next testifier is Mr. Darren Ash, testifying on PEA 41.
Hey, good morning, Chair and members of the committee, and thank you for the opportunity to testify in strong favor of the proposed bill. I'm also going to be referencing the letter that J.D. Kim submitted because I know in previous hearings you've already heard a lot of cases of victims and the way they've been treated and the violations of 801D, because the resolution for the proposed bill is all about being able to enforce 801D. The fact that Mr. Kim thinks that his office is a leader in carrying out the provisions of 801D, I believe is proof that it needs to be enforced. If he thinks he's the leader, and as you've heard of cases that it hasn't been followed through on, it needs to be enforceable. The only real problem with the bill to enforce 801D is that it doesn't do enough. It doesn't come close to the bill that was proposed in 2016 to the state legislature that received overwhelming support from the public, from the House, and from the Senate. But 801D is what we have, sort of. We don't exactly have it because it's not enforceable. I'd like to quote Albert Einstein, smart guy, smarter than me and J.D. Kim put together. Nothing is more destructive of respect for the government and the law of the land than passing laws which cannot be enforced. What we have now is a profound lack of trust for the justice system. And how can we expect justice to be done if we can't trust the justice system? If victims can't trust the justice system, how are they going to be able to come forward? We need that trust, and we need 801D to be enforceable to accomplish justice. Also, the prosecutor doesn't think members of his office should be held accountable when they violate the law. Let me ask you, when an employee of the county, a truck driver on the clock, violates a traffic law, are they held accountable? Yeah, because traffic laws are enforceable. So why should the prosecutor, whose job it is to follow the law, be held to a lower standard than somebody making a split-second decision of how they're going to follow the law? I think the prosecutor should be held to a higher standard, and that's why 801D needs to be enforceable. He's communicating in his letter that him and the members of his office can't do their job if they're held accountable to the law and have to follow the law. But again, that's his job, to follow the law. I hope our mayoral candidates keep that in mind when they're deciding on their appointments. I mean, what we have here is an opportunity to improve the justice system. We have the opportunity to make victims matter, and I think we need to take that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone have questions for the testifier? Ms. Crivello.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. I'm trying to understand what I'm hearing from you. You support the bill, but you feel it should be more, should be written to be more enforceable? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
So currently we have 801D, which is titled Basic Bill of Rights for Victims and Witnesses. The problem is that it's not enforceable. It's literally not enforceable. And so the proposed bill, which the resolution is asking to include in the legislative package, is amending 801D to make it enforceable.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? See none. Okay. The last testifier here in the council chambers is Rosemary Robbins, testifying on PA 27 and PA 41, which is qualifications and victims' rights.
Good morning, everybody. Rosemary Robbins, concerned citizen. PEA 27 is talking about, let me just read this for you, a bill for an ordinance establishing additional qualifications for the Director of Public Works and the Director of Environmental Management. I'm hearing from folks in the community that they think that all of those appointments need to be bucked up with more realistic and available because of communication through electronics that we didn't have to the degree that we do now, that we didn't have in '83. So we don't want to stay stuck in a rut that is depriving us from moving forward with quality for that. This should not be a threat to anybody. We have institutions all over the country and certainly all over the world when it comes to water that are dealing with situations that need to be improved. They have headhunters that will go to, that's a term, that will go to higher institutions of knowledge in these capacities. Some of them have been around for a couple of hundred years. They've made mistakes. They're not going to be increasing the mistakes that they've made. They want to have more quality, more comprehensiveness, and I'm certainly endorsing that. So not to just zero in on two of the people. These ones were talking about, like we said, public works and environmental management. That's only the tip of the iceberg that needs to be thought out, and let's see what's actually in this and how is it serving. So thank you for having brought that up. I appreciate that. The other one is for BEA 4(1). Again, quoting in this document, approving for inclusion in the 2018 Maui County Legislative Package a state bill relating to enforcement of the Basic Bill of Rights for victims and witnesses. I don't know if you saw in the paper over the weekend, but there was a very enlightening, I was dealing with students over the weekend, set of questions. How often did the Bill of Rights of the U.S. Constitution mention the word slavery? Never. When those institutions came about, and much of that was the geography whereat I was born. None of us has a choice of where she or he is going to be born. But those are realities that people had to deal with, that all men are created equal. Amen. What about the women and children? Do we insist upon having a constitution that can never be amended? I don't think so. Take a look at the number of amendments in the U.S. Constitution. It's a growing, evolving, hopefully improving document to guide us all to it having a better community. So when we're doing research, and we know the people typically think of the who, what, when, where, why, how, again, people are recommending that we start with the why. Why? Because everybody deserves a fair break. This is not a case of attacking anybody else. It's a case of appreciating everybody's opportunity to contribute and to be able to rise to being a more informed person today than they were yesterday, self-included. So I certainly am in favor of that happening. I hope that's not going to hurt anybody's feelings out there. If it does, I would encourage them the freedom to grow beyond where they were yesterday and to realize that this is not an attack on anybody. This is an opportunity for everybody. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone have questions for Ms. Robbins? Seeing none, thank you very much for being here.
You're welcome.
At this time, I'd like to go to our district offices. Lanai Denise Fernandez, do you have any testifiers?
Good morning, Chair. This is Denise Fernandez on Lanai, and there is no one waiting to testify.
Thank you. HANA office, Don, do you have any testifiers?
Good morning, Chair. This is Dawn Lono at the HANA office, and there is no one waiting to testify.
Thank you. Molokai, Ella L. Khan, I understand you have 3 testifiers there. Are we connected?
Yes. This is Ella L. Khan on Molokai, and our first testifier is Liko Wallace, who will be testifying on PEA 221 and 219. Oh, sorry, just 219.
Good morning, Council Member Sugimura and Council members.
Good morning.
My name is Liko Wallace, and I am coming to speak on behalf of PEA 2, parentheses 19. I know that you can't answer me right now, but with the applicants that have been submitted by the mayor, my request would be that the mayor would provide the council members the names and the applications to be available for them to go over when deciding who to choose. I would also like to ask Chair to make an amendment to the charter requiring the mayor to do just that. Also, to make a list of names available to the public. We don't need the whole application, just the name, so that we can do our due diligence and check over the people that are applying to sit on the commission. Also, I noticed that the requirement to sit on the commission is just to be a resident of the island that the Planning Commission is. So my questions on that part is, what is the council's process of deciding who to choose? Are each of you looking over the applicants before voting for them? You are all our representatives, and I do not feel that any one council representative should be given the deciding vote. What are your views? And one of the questions I would like them to keep in mind is when deciding who to choose, have some questions to ask them, such as, what are your views on the island issues? So we know where they stand, excuse me. And as far as age goes, I don't want to be discriminating, but in my experiences, for most people who are in the retirement ages, I notice even for myself that as you get older, you tend to lose patience. And I have noticed that with our older representatives, that as they sit there and listen to testimony, when it kind of drags on for a while and most of the testimonies that are coming in are not favorable. They tend to get a little irritated, and they show it on their faces as they're sitting there, that it's like, ugh, not this again. And
30
I would
seconds.
like to think that it's not just because they are retired and they have the time
It's 3
to be
minutes.
sitting on the board that,
Ms. Lico, can you wrap up your testimony? It's 3 minutes right now.
why they should be there. And on the other hand, when choosing someone that has young families that they need to care for, I would like to make sure that the person that is being selected is really looking into the issues, the pros and the cons, and not letting their busyness in taking care of their families step in the way of attending our meetings. That if they commit themselves to these boards, that if there is 20 meetings, they're at 20 meetings and not missing them for any unexcused absences. I feel that there should be some kind of...
Ms. Wallace, can you close up your testimony? We're past the 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone have questions for her? I want to, the next testifier is Mahina Poi Poi.
Mahina Poi Poi. Mahina.
Hi, this is Mahina Poi Poi. Testifying in regards to the the 3 new nominations for the Molokai Planning Commission. I don't support the nominations for the 3 new commission members. I've attended 80, maybe 90% of the meetings this year, and I haven't seen any of these 3 nominees at the meetings, any of the meetings. I think that attendance, familiarity with our island and the community and our issues, being familiar with those things and actually attending meetings is really important, and I question their ability to perform and accurately do these things. I can't trust that these applicants are the best suited to serve Molokai and our community because I don't know who else there was to choose from. I think that the list of candidates should be public knowledge, and I don't know why it's not. This just promotes a lack of transparency, a lack of trust, and takes away our ability to be involved in the process and to know that we're involved in the decision making also. At this point, I do feel like the fact that the list isn't public and that I feel like it's an intentional kind of like a play for power and intentionally trying to limit our opportunity for participation. So maintaining the integrity of the commission is really important to me. And I know that there are better qualified people on that list and people who actively participate in the meetings and who are known community advocates who have applied. And I think that by signing up for a public servant position, you knowingly open yourself up to public scrutiny, and you could have these applicants sign a waiver or a form that would release some basic information to the public, that would give their permission to release it. Like, we just want their names. We don't want their social security numbers, So, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions for Ms. Poi Poi? Ms. King.
Thank you. So I just wanted to clarify that you're testifying on the 3 applicants. Did you give testimony on the appointment of Ms. Poi Poi as the cultural, the Native Hawaiian cultural expert? I'm not sure if you were referring.
No. That's not what they signed up for. They signed up for the Molokai Planning Commissioners.
Well, I just wanted to clarify that she was just that she was just referring to the item that referred to the three. Can I get an answer?
Ms. Poi Poi?
We cannot
Ella.
hear
Ella,
Ms. King.
the question is, Ms. King wants to know if Mahina Poi Poi is testifying on the three commissioners, the three proposed commissioners, or is she...
Under PIA 2-19 or 219.
On 219 is what she signed up for, the three commissioners, or is she also testifying regarding the designated Native Hawaiian traditional customary practices resolution?
I was only testifying for the three new commissioners, PEA 219.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mahina.
Thank you very much. The next testifier is Kiani Rollins, and
Aloha and good morning, Chair and committee members. My name is Kiani Rollins Fernandez. Mahalo for this opportunity to testify on PEA 221 and PEA 219. I testify in support of La'apoipoi's nomination for the cultural practitioner seat. I'd like to also strongly recommend the correction to his name in the county communications. La'akea is spelled L-A-Okina-A-K-E-A, and in his last name there is no Okina. Poi Poi is spelled P-O-E-P-O-E. Okina are letters in the alphabet of this state's other official language. There is never an Okina before or after a consonant. Perhaps the mayor's office would benefit greatly by having someone there with cultural knowledge who could advise where an Okina is supposed to be placed. As for PA 219, I have great concerns regarding these nominations. Our community needs commissioners who will be committed to be at every meeting, who will do their due diligence, critically reviewing the meeting materials, and be prepared to discuss the issues that community members bring up. These commissioners must have independent critical thinking skills that help them to balance the needs of today with the needs of tomorrow. The commission as a whole must also have balance. Lastly, the commissioners must be welcoming and encouraging for public participation. After all, that is the purpose of the existence of the MOPC. MOPC meets twice monthly. This year, 25% of their meetings were canceled because of lack of quorum. And when they do not meet, many of their meetings consist of bare quorum. When they do meet, many of their meetings consist of bare quorum, which makes it very difficult to take action on items because they would have to come to consensus, which is very difficult. Many permits have an automatic approval deadline, which means which makes attendance even more critical to this commission. Permits the community do not want to be passed or approved would be approved by default because no action could be taken by the MOPC. For this reason, I'm testifying in opposition to the nomination of Carl Adolfo. He served on the Community Plan Advisory Committee in 2015, as it states on his application. During this time, he only showed up to 4 of the 18 meetings of which he was a member. This means that he missed almost 80%, 78% of the meetings. As I stated earlier, it is imperative that whoever is selected to sit on this important commission be committed to attending these meetings. I'm also testifying in opposition to the nomination of John Spinto. I'm not convinced that this nominee will have the patience and desire to listen to the community members testify. We need commissioners who will be willing to take their time in making decisions that affect our island far into the future. We cannot have someone who will rush to judgment because they just want the meeting to be over as quickly as possible. This is the opposite of due diligence. I am happy that Ms. Favorito withdrew her application. Mahalo to her for having that level of integrity. I strongly urge you to consider the balance of the commission as a whole. Right now, there is only one person who has experience in environmental law, and too many of the commissioners have ties to the same employer.
3 minutes. Could you wrap up your testimony, please?
Yes. In closing, I would like to underscore the fact that this is a public process. I strongly disagree with the mayor's position on not providing the council the names and application of those who apply for the various boards and commissions. The mayor can easily provide the council members this information in executive session. However, there is no violation of privacy to provide the public the names of these individuals. Mahalo for this opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Anyone have questions for Ms. Rollins? Seeing none, thank you very much for being here. At this time, any more testifiers? Ella from Molokai?
There's no testifiers left on Molokai.
Okay, thank you. At this time, members, anyone from the chambers, is there any other testifiers? Seeing none, I'm going to ask if I can close public testimony.
No objections.
No objections.
Thank you. And I'll close public testimony. At this time, I'm going to take up the first item, which is PA 221, designating La'akea Poi Poi as a Native Hawaiian traditional and customary practice expert to the Molokai Planning Commissions. Members, it is a proposed resolution relating to the designation, and the purpose of the resolution is to approve or disapprove La'akea Poi Poi to be the Native Hawaiian traditional and customary practices expert to the Molokai Planning Commissions pursuant to Section 2.28.070 Maui County Code. At this time, you remember, members, that we actually took up this resolution and approved Mr. Poi Poi July 28, 2017 through Resolution 17-119. And I already read the Maui County Code, which is pursuant to 2.28.070. Mr. Poi Poi is the mayor's choice to fill the requirement of a Native Hawaiian traditional and customary practices expert to the Molokai Planning Commission. And each of you have his original application dated March 11, 2017, and a copy of his application. Mr. Poi Poi has not been requested to attend today's meeting, and at this time I'd like to ask the mayor's representative, Mr. Buck, if you would like to say a few words regarding this designation. Oh, your mic is off.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Basic comments I'll give. Based on Mr. Poi Poi's Hawaiian ancestry, his passion for the culture and family background, the administration is comfortable with giving him this designation as the Hawaiian culture expert for the Molokai Planning Commission. We also contacted Councilmember Cervello for her input on Mr. Poi Poi and would like to yield the floor to her for further comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone have questions for Mr. Buck? Okay, seeing none. At this time, Ms. Crivello, you have a...
I do support the appointment of Mr. La'akea Poi Poi on the basis that he is a practitioner and he olelo. And he grew up practicing many of our, I would say he's a fisherman. As part of growing up in the subsistence area of trying to preserve subsistence with our community-based fishing practices in the Mo'omomi area. He's also a strong advocate in finding the balance with in our ahupua'a. So for me, he brings forth before us commitment to preserving the culture, and he's also in today's world a firefighter. And the thing about it, that he comes from a family who, with his mom and his dad, as practicing and advocating many of the Hawaiian rights. And his mom is a kumu that teaches the language. And also, he's married to a young girl who testified earlier that also, I guess they hold hands together in trying to support what is and advocate for what is culturally valuable. So I support his appointment as the Native Hawaiian traditional and customary practices. I also like to add that, you know, I'm not the expert who's to say you're it or you're not. I know we have this as our new ordinance, but who qualifies me to appoint? And I appoint on the basis, I support the appointment on the basis of coming from my community and knowing the families who are generational and who continually to be actual practitioners. I just need to add that as we try to identify ourselves as understanding who are we to make that kind of conclusion. But I would do that in support because I come from a community that, not because you're an activist, you're a practitioner. But La'akea is a practitioner. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else have any comments?
Chair, I have a
Yes,
question,
Ms.
just a
King.
question, because I noticed on the list that Mr. Poi Poi is already on the list. So are we reappointing him as the?
So this came up, thanks for that question, in our discussions about how to address existing members on commissions and appoint them to be the designated cultural historical designee. And it would come before the council. And I think through Corp Council and with Mr. Molina, this policy was, or this method, I guess, or process was established. So this is an existing member, which we confirmed earlier, as I said,
Right.
and we are then now designating him to be the cultural expert. So this resolution is to designate him to be the cultural expert for the Molokai Planning Commission.
Okay, then if we're doing that and the term as cultural expert starts after approval or whenever date is, does this become a full term, or is it just till the end of his existing term?
Mr. Kushi, I don't think this doesn't change his term. It just designates him as a cultural person. Mr. Kushi?
Yes, I would think it would run with his term.
Okay, so then at the end of his term, we have to reappoint another Native Hawaiian cultural expert.
That would seem to be the case unless you reappoint somebody else now. There's no limit as to how many. The ordinance just says at least one.
Right. Okay, thank you.
So his term is March 31st, 2019, and this resolution is to designate him as that person. So any other questions, members? So at this time, then, I would like to recommend adoption of the proposed resolution entitled Relating to the Designation of La'akea Poi Poi as a Native Hawaiian traditional and customary practices expert to the Molokai Planning Commission, incorporating, thank you, motion by Member Crivello.
Second.
Second by Member Atai. Any discussions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Excused? 2, and we have 7 ayes. The motion passes. Thank you very much, members. At this time now, I'd like to take up the second item on our agenda, which we have 3 nominees for the Molokai Planning Commission. As I said earlier, we have the last nominee on the agenda withdrew their nomination for the Molokai Planning Commission. So before us, though, we do have all 3 resolutions relating to the appointment of John Spritzer to the Molokai Planning Commission, relating to the appointment of Carl Adolfo III to the Molokai Planning Commission, and then the last one is relating to the appointment of Lou Ann Langford Favorito to the Molokai Planning Commission. And this is the nominee that has withdrawn at this point. So at this time, members, I would like to first have Mr. Buck say a few words regarding Mr. Spritzer, Mr. John Sprinzel. I'm sorry, Sprinzel.
I really don't have no comments. I mean, his application should be in front of you. He's replacing Rob Stevenson for the term expiring on 3/31/21. He's a resident of Kanakakai, and he previously served on the Molokai Planning Commission, Molokai Community Plan Advisory, and the Urban Design Review Board. He's retired from the State of Hawaii Department of Education. I'm sorry if I do not have any additional information on.
Thank you. That was good information. Ms. Crivello, do you have anything to add regarding John Sprinzel?
No, I don't. Well, let me put it this way. He served, I believe, as chair in the Planning Commission in the past. He was part of our Department of Education of our schools on Molokai. And I appreciate when those do step forward to accept the appointment from the mayor, so I'm okay.
Thank you. Anyone have any other questions or comments regarding Mr. Sprinzel?
I have a question.
Ms. King?
Yes, I actually want to ask Mr. Buck or representative of the mayor, how many applications did we get for Molokai Planning Commission?
Unfortunately, I don't have that information in front of me, so I would have to get back to you on that. I'm not really sure.
Okay, is Mr. Molina around?
No, he's
No,
not.
he's not.
That's
Mr.
why
Buck
I'm here.
is.
I'm the pitch hitter
Okay.
today.
All
Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Atai?
Chair, I'm trying to get some clarification. So we currently have 3 vacant positions open,
Yes.
and we received 4 applications, 2 of which have withdrawn.
No.
Because I have a Halinak Lloyd. No, I don't know how I got this then.
No.
Okay, so I have a Gail Ann Mahailani Halinak Lloyd.
Oh,
Oh.
Lloyd, Aliniak Lloyd,
Yeah.
she withdrew.
Yeah, she withdrew. And then now I'm told that a Langford
looking at old
Favorito
ones.
also withdrew.
Yeah.
So currently, right now, then, we are considering 2 appointments
Yes.
with 3 openings.
Well, we actually have 3 appointments that we're considering. Just that we have been notified, as you just mentioned, that we have 1 person that withdrew, which is Luann Favorito. So we have before us Springle and Carl Adolfo,
Yeah.
right? Okay,
Yeah.
you are correct.
So I have 2 appointments,
And-
recommended appointments with 3 openings.
And we also have Luann, now don't get confused, I'm sorry. We are still considering her. Her name is before us, Luann Favorito, but she has withdrawn. But that is the 3rd one, so we are looking at 3 today.
But she withdrew.
She will, yeah.
Okay.
So we need to take action on that. We
Okay.
still need to take action as a council, right?
Yeah.
Mayor appoints, and we confirm.
Yeah, so with the thought of trying, welcoming individuals from the community stepping up and applying to sit on a board and commission, realizing we have 3 openings, also realizing that a person by the name of John Sprinsel already served on commission, and also with the heat of warning, can his slot be appointed to Williama Akutagawa's slot, which would expire March 31 of 18, and then keeping the 2 longer-term spots for considerations, because there's, like I said, 3 total with different ending dates.
So that is a question. We received the recommendation from the mayor as to the expiration dates and the slots that we are filling. So that is not council, maybe you can confirm, but that's not a decision that council makes. It is a decision from the mayor's office.
Recess.
Madam Chair, if I understand Member Otai's question is that right now, Mr. Sprinsel is nominated for a full term.
Yes.
So are you suggesting that his nomination be not for a full term, but for a replacement on a shorter term?
Finish up the previous.
I guess it can be done, but it will need to be from the mayor's office. And I suggest that, Mr. Buck take it up with whoever needs to be taken up, but at least the vacancy will be filled on a temporary basis. And I see no problem in that. The only problem I see is you're facing a timeline. But it can be done.
Thank you. So that is the recommendation that we got from the mayor's office, and it is Ms. Crivello.
I have a question for Mr. Kushi. When you say it can be done, is it done after confirmation or before confirmation, or do we amend something so that it can be done in response to Mr. Atai's inquiry?
I would suggest that discussion be had now and get a commitment from the mayor's office if it's possible today, and before the final reading on the resolution, an amended resolution would come down specifying the specific shorter term vacancy. And the vehicle will be done through an amended resolution and an amended letter.
Ms. Crivello?
No, this answers the question. I
Okay.
don't know what, how we would proceed it if it's so requested, but that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, so members, before us today, we have Mr. John Sprinzel's resolution, and it did come to us as stated to be a term expiring 3/31/2021, filling the vacancy of Robert Stevenson, and we must reply by September 18th. That's the 60-day notification that we have to reply regarding this. So that is our deadline.
September 18th, what?
I'm sorry, December 18th. Sorry, what did I say? December 18th, 2017 is our 60-day deadline. Am I hearing that the members would like to amend his termination date? Is
Chair,
that something
I
possible?
would agree to that if the committee would consider it. I can agree to Mr. Sprinzel.
Okay.
Amending his resolution to serve, to replace Williama Akutagawa.
Okay, so if I'm on the resolution for John Sprinzel, on the first sentence, whereas by correspondence dated October 19, 2017, Acting Mayor Keith A. Reagan notified the council he nominated John Sprinzel to the Molokai Planning Commission for a term expiring on March 31st, 2021, to fill the vacancy of Robert Stevenson. So do I hear that you want to amend this? Mr.
I so
Kushi,
move
is that
to amend.
You so move?
But
Chair,
would you
point
accept
of-
the motion first?
Point of order. Just on this resolution, I don't think we can amend the whereases because that's what's coming to us. I think what we can amend is under where it says, "Be it resolved by the
correct. I'm
Council of the
sorry.
County of Maui that it approves the appointment of John Sprinzel to serve on the Molokai Planning Commission for a term expiring March 31, 2018." So
Thank
I think
you.
that would be our
Ms. King, so thank you. So we would have to amend both. So that would be the first amendment in the opening paragraph, in the whereas, and you're
But
right.
Chair,
be it
Chair, no,
resolved.
my point of order was that the correspondence came to us saying March 31st, 2021. We can't change what the correspondence says. So I
So-
think the whereas is appropriate as written because that's what we received. But the be it resolved is the part that is a decision we're making today. That would be my
Thank you,
read of it.
Ms.
Maybe
King.
Mr. Kushi could
Mr. Kushi?
confirm.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I believe Member King might be right. It is what it is. It happened that this letter correspondence, but then your approving vehicle is the be it resolved. I would suggest, and again, this is subject to the
The mayor.
appointing authorities' consent to it. Yep. I would suggest amending the first be it resolved to something to the effect that the appointment of John Sprinzel to serve Molokai Planning Commission will be whatever, March
31st,
2018.
2018, to replace the vacancy created by Akutagawa. So it's clear that, his appointment is replacing not Stevenson, but Akutagawa.
Right. Thank you.
Mr. White?
Thank you, Chair. I don't think it's really appropriate for us to act on this. If the administration's consent is required or appropriate, I think we should see if we can during the mid-morning break, see if we can get concurrence from the administration. I'm a little troubled by taking somebody who's been asked to serve through 2021, and assuming agreed to that, and we're basically changing that to a 3-month time frame on the commission. It almost seems unnecessary. I'm assuming that we will likely have someone appointed to replace Mr. Akutagawa for the full term, possibly after that term expires. But it seems a little bit strange to appoint somebody to the remainder of a 3-month, or the 3 months remaining. So.
Yes, Ms.
Thank you, Chair. So I was just wondering if there's a way, since the deadline's December 18th, actually, if there's a way to just get this all sorted out and, you know, give the mayor the opportunity to vet all this out and then return back with it all, you know, spelled out as needed at this time. And also, I'm hearing there's quite a, do you know, Mr. Buck, I have a question for Mr. Buck, if that's okay. If the mayor or whoever's in charge of all the applications that come in look to receive input from the community, you know, itself, as in comments for each applicant or the applicant.
So Ms. Cochran, this comes up periodically when we have meetings about commissioners, and I think was established in previous meetings through questions from our members that the mayor nominates and we confirm, and that I know that there was testifiers as well as some of the members who would like to see the whole list of who applied and different things, but it was said, and the mayor even sent down 2 letters to us, which was distributed to this body at the last meeting, saying that it is the purview of the mayor, and the mayor selects, and he sends down the names to us for us to confirm. So I think that was made pretty clear on the last meeting that we had when all this came up. So anybody have any more questions regarding this?
Sorry, Chair. Excuse me, but that wasn't my question. I understand all that you just explained to me.
Good.
But my question to Mr. Buck, if he does know, when the administration receives these applications, are they open, or do they receive input also, you know, people who are in support of these nominees? Because there's people from their communities who know they're applying, who support their application, and who would like to urge the mayor and administration to choose such people. So I'm just asking the question if that's taken into consideration.
Mr. Buck.
I can't really answer that question, but I do know that when the application comes in, I'm sure that there's no public testimony or, you know, have a public hearing about it, but I'm sure they, knowing the connections in the various communities, they would ask about a candidate. But as far as a formal hearing or formal input, I'm sure I cannot answer that right now.
Thank you, Mr. Buck.
I can ask when Mr. Millian comes back, maybe give some sort of a detail.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't looking for a public hearing of sorts, but just if any input's taken, you know, in addition to a application, and if you got, you know, a whole handful of people saying, hey, this person would really fit the bill, we really support, but, you know, they're the voice of our community, what have you, perhaps that can lend a little bit more weight to choosing whether the mayor administration actually knows the person personally or what have you, but they can just gather input via the people they live with on that particular island and area. So that's all my line of questioning was asking.
Thank you very much.
And so at this time, I'd like, because hearing the comments of our testimonies and also hearing from people from the area, they know of other nominees. So I'm not asking for a list, but I just know that there's been applicants.
Thank you.
And so my question is, how was it, you know, hopefully everyone's voices are taken into consideration when choosing. That's what I'm asking.
Thank you very much. So at this time then, on this one item, what I'm going to do is I'm going to defer this to the next meeting, which is on November 27th, for Mr. Springle so that we can talk about this termination date. And so if I could ask for you to withdraw your motion. Stacy, on the earlier motion.
So said. Yep.
Okay, and then I think Mr. Atai was the second. Thank you very much. So at this time, I'm going to defer Mr. Springle so that we can talk to the mayor's office regarding Sprinzel.
Sprinzel,
So we can talk about the change of the termination date. So the next item we're going to take up.
Chair, before you move on, in relation to the applicant, one of my questions was what has he been doing since 2003 till today? Because it only states what his job past experiences were till 2003, and it's 2017 now. So that's 14 years of not knowing what he's been doing, where he's been, or anything. So his application really doesn't tell me a whole lot, and that's why I
Thank you.
would have liked to have him personally to talk to.
Okay, thank you very much. So next, I'm going to defer this item, and I'm going to ask that we look at relating to the appointment of Cara Aldolfo to the Molokai Planning Commission. So on this person, Mr. Buck, do you have any comments?
Mr. Adolfo is replacing Michael Drew for a term expiring on 3/31/21. He's a resident of Hua, employed Monsanto as a seed technician and previously served on the Molokai CPAC. Thank you. That's all I got. Sorry, I don't have more information.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Corbella, do you have anything to say further on Cara Aldolfo III?
I do support his appointment. He's they family are generational, and he's raising his family, and he understands the needs and what will be for the future of his young children. He participates with our Department of Education aside from his regular employment. He has served on CPAC. You know, I think testifiers have mentioned that applicants may have not showed up at the Planning Commission meetings. I don't know who shows up anyway because it's an akaku. I don't show up necessarily, and I think the community shows up when there are matters of interest. And we have a thing that, you know, I know Mr. Adolfo has showed up at other commission meetings. I do support his interests. I believe some of the conflicts that have had with the CPAC, and I don't think that one of the testifiers was even on the island at that time, but the intent was surely for him to participate. Employment at that time did not release with pay, but I understand that's been changed today, that this will be part of their community service. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else have any more questions regarding this regarding Mr. Adolfo?
Chair.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms.
I was
Cochran.
thank you. I was taking notes on one of the testifiers in relation to the nominee, and it was stated that in his capacity, he showed up, like, I don't know, something 4 out of 18 meetings. So I don't know if there's any truth to that or where, you know, what had occurred there and why such show lack of turnout for, you know, a position he accepted to participate in.
Thank you. Ms. Corbella, you have any comments regarding that?
I stated earlier,
Yeah.
because I take an interest in people who served on CPAC and other members were concerned about his participation. I mentioned earlier what were the reasonings behind that. and that's been corrected with his opportunity to serve. You know, I remind people that these are volunteers. Yes, they're going to take time off from their job. We meet during the day every Wednesdays, twice Wednesdays from 11 a.m. till whatever time our meetings get done. Most people can't attend unless it's issue, but those who volunteer are taking time off from their workplace, and having permission is at least to allow the opportunity to serve. So I believe Mr. Adolfo would not apply if he did not find the interest, and hopes that he can continue to serve fully. Yeah.
Thank you.
I wish to add too, he's born and raised on the island. He's a homesteader, he's a farmer, and his family is well known. Well known on the island. They're a Hawaiian family that also brings of interest that will benefit his children and my grandchildren, what have you, as well as all the others who's try to serve on there, you know. I don't know about the other applicants. I just look what is before us, and what is before us, I can support Manu's appointment.
Thank you. So at this time, members, anyone else have any comments? Seeing none, at this time I'm going to recommend the adoption of the resolution relating to the appointment of Carl Adolfo to the Molokai Planning Commission, along with the completed application, which we have, and his term will be expiring on March 31st, 2021. And this time, do I hear a motion? Ms. Crivello? Well, second by Mr. Carroll. So all in favor?
Chair?
Yes.
Which resolution is it? Because I don't see it in Granicus here.
We are
Is it one of these?
Sure. So while they're looking,
This?
can I ask a question?
Yes.
It says John Spritzel.
Was there
Okay, so it's a second part of this.
responses to having any of these applicants attend today to have interviews?
No.
Okay, because I know my office did, but anyways, okay. I think we were asked the day before your deadline to submit, and then obviously the weekend came up and holidays, so perhaps my recommendation,
So my policy has been that we ask for 4 people, 4 members ask, and then we'll ask them to come and testify before or be in the district office. So thank you very much for that.
And so anyone, I know my office did. Did you
Yeah,
receive
we probably had another one.
recommendation?
My
So
office as well.
2
Oh, okay, so only 2.
with 3.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So,
I would have preferred that.
To answer your question, Ms. King, correspondence on Granicus from Acting Mayor
I found
10/19/27. Do you have it?
I found it. It was the second one of
Yes, second to the
item.
last. So at this time then, I would like to, did we already get a motion? We have a motion from Ms. Crivello and a second from Mr. Carroll for the adoption of the resolution. Any discussion? Yes?
Yeah, Chair. So in my opening comments in relation to deferral, I would prefer deferral of all, just due to the fact that I really was interested in having them personally here to learn a lot more about the applicants. So I'm not going to be in favor this time. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Chair.
Thank you. Ms. King?
I agree, and I think we probably need to have support, nothing against Mr. Buck, but have support from, the office, the person who potentially knows the applicants. So we haven't, I understand that there's, people go on vacations and there's substitutes, but, I'd like to hear a little more from the mayor's office on why he chose this applicant.
Mr. Buck, do you have any more comments as to, do you know?
We asked and he had no comment, and I understand that he's filling in, so I'm not trying to pressure him, but I just would like to hear more about why, how many applicants there were and why these ones were chosen. So that's my
Thank you.
position.
Mr. Buck.
Chair, after this meeting, I will be write down some of the comments that was brought up by the committee members, and then somehow and I will forward to Mike via email, and then I'll have a discussion with the mayor later on today. Just follow up on your questions and concerns. So even though I'm here and I don't have all the answers, I'll try to get you some answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buck.
Okay, so members, I'm hearing that there's still more questions. I'm going to ask to, shall we defer this until we can get those questions answered?
Are your questions, what questions are you referring to? Why he picked the applicant?
Yes, so those types of
we're going to question for every applicant that comes before us after we get the qualifications from the actual applicant that's before us?
Okay, we've done that already. So, okay, members, I'm going to take a vote then to adopt the resolution as proposed. So, members, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 in support and 2 opposed, and we need 5 to pass this. So, can I have for a brief recess? Meeting back to order. So at this time, then, what I'm going to do is defer this and take it up once we get more information, and we'll look at it with full council. So, members, the item is deferred. The next item I'm going to...
Chair, just to clarify, is that, maybe Mr. Kushi could answer my question, is that deferment after a vote is taken? Is that proper procedure?
So, Mr. Kushi?
Yes, as I understand what happened, there's a motion to approve, it failed. So unless there's a motion to disapprove, which if the vote holds, it will fail too, the item still remains on the agenda.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you either defer it or you file it, and in the committee report, ask the council to discharge the committee.
Okay, so the
So it'll be taken up at council.
failure to approve does not constitute a disapproval. I just want to clarify.
No, you need a separate motion.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for that clarification, and thank you, Ms. King. So the next item that we have before us is relating to the appointment of Luann Langford Favorito to the Molokai Planning Commission. And as I opened up with, you know that she's withdrawing her name to be on the Molokai Planning Commission. So at any discussion on that, members? I would like to ask for, I would like to disapprove her to be on the Molokai Planning Commission since she's withdrawing her name. Ms. Crivello.
I so move to disapprove. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So I have a motion from Member Crivello, a second from Mr. White. All in favor, we are withdrawing, we are approving her nomination. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Okay, so we are, Elle Cochran is not here. Excused are 3, and so that's going to be 6 of us. 1, 2, oh, 4 of us. Oh, 4. Okay, 6. 5 ayes. 5 ayes and 4 noes. So we have excused. We have Elle Cochran, Ricky Hokama, Don Guzman, and Alika Atai are all excused. So this passes. Next on our item, members, we are done with boards and commissions. It's been an interesting discussion, and we are moving on to Maui County Legislative Package 2018, Maui County Package for PA 41. Before us is a resolution dated November 2nd to the Department of Corp Counsel, from the Department of Corp Counsel, transmitting a proposed resolution entitled Urging the State of Hawaii Legislative Reference Bureau to report to the state legislature on the level of enforcement for each county's Victims Witness Assistance Program. And the purpose of the proposed resolution is to urge the State of Hawaii LRB to report to the state legislature on the level of enforcement for each Victims Witness Assistance Program to determine whether data supports the need to allow for more stringent enforcement. Members, any discussion? See none?
Oh, sorry.
Ms. Cochran?
Sorry, Chair. I went to the restroom, probably TMI, but so you just read your proposed resolution to the floor? Is that
The heading, correct.
what happened?
Correct.
Okay. And so you're looking for further data and information. And did you notice all the packet that I submitted to our committee this morning?
Thank you.
And it was...
That was passed out to the members.
Right. And so this has a lot of data and information, which just so happened came through my office the last time we spoke about this pretty instantaneously after our meeting had concluded. And so I've now submitted it to us here. So not sure if anyone had a chance to look through it, but it has a lot of stats and factual information and numbers and things of that nature. I feel that gives a lot of credence and support to what I've been trying to do via this.
Thank you. This was passed out this morning to the members. This is from the City and County of Honolulu. Anyway, any other members have any questions? Mr. White.
Thank you, Chair. I think, based on the time that we have, it's unlikely that the Legislative Reference Bureau is going to have time to do much of a study. So I think it might be appropriate for us to simply send Ms. Cochran's packet as an attachment to the reso, so that they can simply pass on the information to the legislators, or I don't know if it's appropriate for us to send it directly to all legislators, but that may be another option, since time is not on our side to have the Legislative Reference Bureau actually bring it up and spend time on it. This is the time when they're generally drafting bills. So, but I appreciate Ms. Cochran's office providing this background, because it is pretty interesting material, and shows that we need to have somebody take a look at it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members? Ms. King.
Chair, so I just want to clarify that we're, because this, I don't know, this Granicus also has a resolution on it referring to oxybenzone, so I'm not sure why that's in this meeting, but the resolution that we're voting on, or we're being asked to consider, is dated 11/2, the revised resolution from Corp Counsel.
The reason, that's all part of the county package, that's why you have the oxybenzone in it.
What's it dated? This one?
Correct.
Because there's so many.
It is,
so many
in Granicus,
okay, so,
it is the second.
so basically, the resolution is urging, is the council urging the State of Hawaii Legislative Reference Bureau to report to the state legislature on the level of enforcement for each county's victim witness assistance program.
Correct.
Okay.
So this is what was decided at the last meeting that we had, that we took this up to take on this resolution and to then pass this on to the state of Hawaii. So at this time, I hear Mr. White is recommending the attachment that was sent to us from Ms. Crivello also be sent, from Ms. Cochran, I'm sorry, also be sent over with the resolution. Members, at this time, I'm looking for recommend adoption of the proposed resolution urging the State of Hawaii Legislative Reference Bureau to report to the state legislature and the level of enforcement for each county's victim witness assistance program.
Second.
Thank you. So moved by Mr. White, second by Ms. King. This will also be filing of the correspondence dating September 8th, 2017, transmitting an alternative proposed resolution, and this to include in the 2018 Maui County Package a state bill related to the enforcement of the Bill of Rights for victims and witness. So thank you. Any other discussion, members?
Yeah, Chair.
Ms. Cochran.
So this is, you're trying to replace what I originally proposed then?
Yes.
And why, I'm trying to figure that part out. So I see one year whereas is urging the state to provide supporting annual data, and this is what this packet is, and this came about, you know, I attended the domestic violence meetings that were organized by the Hawaii Women's Legislative Caucus last month. And the information that I submitted to this committee, this packet here, was provided to all attendees at this meeting. And this gives us survey results that were conducted by Hawaii State Coalition Against Domestic Violence in preparation for county meetings, HRS 709-906 statistics, DV cases filed under this HRS 709-906, and it was updated January 9th of this year. UCR, sorry, I don't know what that acronym is, Program Quarterly, April 2017, which outlines new domestic violence reporting requirements, and comparisons of Honolulu Police Department patrol, and all kinds of data. Senator Baker, Representative DeCoit, Senator Thielen hosted this event, which I attended, and the DV community gave insight on DV issues affecting this county. And the Hawaii State Coalition Against Domestic Violence has been coordinating along with Maui County DV advocates. The groups that were reached out to and were there to provide testimony included Women Helping Women, PACT, Family Peace Center, Child and Family Services of Maui and Molokai, and Alternatives to Violence. The state reps and senators are actively working with victims to improve the experiences of victims with regard to support from all of our judiciary bodies. Also in attendance and participating was the Judiciary, Attorney General, and other elected officials who discussed issues that were raised in their first two meetings. This is a recognized issue deserving of our due diligence and attention. It is a problem statewide, and we are not the only body looking at ways to improve the deficiencies. I do not see the harm in sending this issue to the state for their discussion and scrutiny. This body is not being asked to make a decision. This body is being asked to send this item to the state so they may make that decision. And so I humbly request support from the body that gives victims regard for their grievances by acknowledging that an issue may be worthy of our response. And so this is what prompted me, and along with firsthand experiences via people like Ms. Scott, who is here today, and I think in the gallery, should we want to use her as a resource for further information and insight. I think she has very compelling information, firsthand experience actually with our own personal people next door here, which prompted me to push forward the resolution that I did. And now you want to disregard that, and I'm not in support of disregarding what I worked really hard on and gathered a lot of information and background on, including this entire packet of information. So I don't agree with that, whereas in your reso at this time.
Thank you. Yes,
You're the
Ms.
chair.
King. Yes, I just wanted to follow up and try to understand what version of the bill Member Cochran is referring to. There's a communication from Ms. Cochran dated 9/8/17 and several resolutions attached to that. So I just wanted to find out what version she's referring to.
I was trying to find it in Granik.
Members, I'm going to call a brief recess.
Sadness swept throughout our humble nation and our people. Ehukilike no kako, ekuleana kokako.
As well as the additional documentation that was given to us today by Ms. Cochran. And so at this time, I'd like to take a vote on what is before us, which is the resolution. So the resolution is to transmit the resolution to the state legislature, Legislative Reference Bureau, this resolution. Remember now, this is what the committee voted on the last time we met as a resolution to the legislature as it relates to the Victims' Rights Bill that was proposed by Ms. Cochran.
So are we still in
Ms.
discussion?
I am going to ask for a motion, and then we can discuss.
No, there's a motion on the floor.
There's a motion on the floor.
That's why, yeah, I think we're in discussion.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Well, the motion that's on the floor has no bill that it's referring to. I know we talked about sending this information, but the motion that the resolution I think originally proposed, and I apologize because I wasn't in the previous meeting where you took this up, but the resolution that I believe Ms. Cochran is referring to specifically refers to the bill, the attached bill, and that it allows for, the bill is written up, is amended to allow for more stringent enforcement of the basic Bill of Rights for victims and witnesses. And I think this is what the testimony that we heard today was referring to the bill and wanting the council to back up the amendments in this bill to give that more stringent support. Whereas the bill, what we have on the floor right now is just requesting some action by the Legislative Reference Committee. So to me, they're two different things. And so if we pass this one, are we not even going to take up the other one?
So the discussion from our BA meeting that brought this resolution forward was to find out more information regarding the victim's witness data from the Legislative Reference Bureau, and so that prompted this resolution after our last meeting. And so that is what is before you today.
Correct, but in the agenda, it says the committee may consider whether to recommend adoption of a proposed resolution with or without revisions. It may also consider the filing of the correspondence of other related actions. So we've got these other related actions under here, and I guess I wanted to find out from Court Counsel, is it proper to take action on this other resolution that Ms. Cochran is referring to? Or
So
would it take an amendment to the current resolution on the floor?
So what is before us is a resolution. Mr. Kushi.
Madam Chair, I believe the motion on the floor is to approve or disapprove the resolution urging the State of Hawaii Legislative Reference Bureau. What Member King is talking about is the other resolution that includes a bill, and that's not on the floor.
Thank you. So we have this resolution that we have been talking about, and that's what we're voting on. Is that Ms. King?
Well, I'm just, yeah, I guess I wasn't in the discussion about this other bill, so I just wanted to clarify that the resolution doesn't really, I'm not sure why it's in the legislative packet, because it's not referring to a bill. It's not referring to any legislation. I mean, it's something that is just requesting that the Legislative Bureau, that some action on their part, a report. So it's not, I don't think that we have the ability to do that as a council. That has to come from the state legislature.
Okay. Any other discussion? So before us, members, is the resolution urging the State of Hawaii Legislative Reference Bureau to report on the state legislature and the level of enforcement for each county's Victims Witness Assistance Program. So that is before us. Ms. Cochran.
Sure. So, yeah, I guess I'm just kind of I am confused because if I recall, my original reso, which is to be included here in this ledge package, was deferred, and now we're back, and you are presenting your own reso, which to me isn't the same, number one. Number two, what I've given us, answers what this reso is trying to do. So I'm not comfortable disregarding or just pushing forward your version and not what it originally did. So are we to not revisit that? Because mine is actually working with the law and legislation. And mine is trying to hold parties accountable to do their job and to put stringent enforcement into place. And yours is asking the state whether we should put more stringent enforcement into place via receiving more data. Here's the data, and the state is already aware. I sat with senators and judges and everyone else under the sun who completely agrees with the comments that we should be addressing the accountability factor here. So I don't quite get what you're trying to do.
Thank you.
And not in support. So
Thank you.
do you
Mr.
have an
White.
answer, though? Sorry, Chair. Do
So
you have
this-
an answer
Ms.
in
Cochran.
regards to my original proposal?
This came up at our last meeting, and what came out of it was the committee decided to do a reso to ask for more information. So that is what this reso is about. It is the wishes of the members who were here that got voted, and so that's what we're doing. Mr. White.
Thank you, Chair. My recollection was that there wasn't support to pass the initial proposal from Ms. Cochran, so this was the next step. And I believe that this is something that the resolution is appropriate, and we can send the packet of information along. I would recommend consideration of amending the resolution so that the packet of information from Ms. Cochran goes to all state legislators, not just the Senate President and the Speaker of the House. I think Ms. Cochran appropriately is focusing on the issue because I think it needs to be addressed. I don't agree with the way it was addressed in the proposed bill, but I agree that the item needs to have the light shined on it, and that the legislature needs to take a close look. So I appreciate your taking this step since there was not the level of support necessary to get the other bill put through.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. White. Ms. King.
Yeah, Chair, just looking through this report that was just given to us by Ms. Cochran's office, this appears to be the report that is asked for in this resolution. So now I'm confused about why we're asking for a resolution to do something that's already been done for each county. And I'm looking through, and the first ones are submitted by the city auditor, City and County of Honolulu. I haven't gone through this whole thing because it just came to us, but I'm assuming there's information from other counties here. So why would we ask the state, why would we even pass this resolution? It's already been done.
Thank you. Mr. White.
Thank you. I don't disagree with what Ms. King is saying, but the Legislative Reference Bureau, as I said, is not going to have time to do a report for this particular legislative session. So maybe we should amend it to send to all state legislators this packet.
Okay, so is that an amendment?
But I think it's still appropriate to ask the Legislative Reference Bureau to pull all information that they can get their hands on from all 4 counties. And anyway, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Crivello.
So am I to understand that with this existing reso that we have before us, we will be able to attach all of the data or documents to send, if we make the amendment, to send it to all state legislators?
Yes, if I hear an amendment, that would be one of the be it resolved. Mr. Kushi, can you help us develop that language? That certified copies of...
Chair.
Yes.
My clarification is, I can understand the amendment, but is it to include and attach all what has been set before us from Ms. Cochran's office relating to the actual bill, I guess? Is that what we're going to amend?
We are
to add?
talking about the resolution is the document before us.
Right.
And for that, I'm hearing that you want to add another be it resolved for certified copies of this to be also sent to all the legislators. Is that correct?
With the attachments, are we taking into consideration to attach all what is before us?
Okay, members, is that all right? Do I hear an amendment? So we are going to amend by adding another be it resolved as number 3, that certified copies of this resolution be transmitted to the state legislators, the House and the Senate, copies of it, along with the attachment provided us.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. White. Okay, moved by Mr. White, second by Ms. Cochran.
No,
I'm sorry,
I didn't
Ms.
second
Crivello. Sorry, Ms. Crivello.
Chair, didn't we already have this is an amendment?
This is an amendment. We're having an amendment now before us. So we're amending it so that we're going to attach this attachment given to us today by Ms. Cochran. We're going to attach it to the resolution and transmit it to the state legislature. On the Mr. Kushi.
Manager, to be clear, the attachments would be a document dated November 9th, 2017 from Member Cochran to yourself, which is including an audit from the City and County Honolulu report to the mayor, as well as a second document entitled Survivor Survey for Public Policy Reform 2017. Those are the only 2 documents I know of. Please confirm that.
Survivor survey. Shelley, which document is that?
That's correct.
That's correct, okay. Okay. So that is correct, Mr. Kushi. So at this time, I'm going to vote on the amendment. So the amendment is to add that language to the resolution, which we just said. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Okay, so we have 1, 2, 5, 6 of us who are in favor of that. So the amendment passes. So now I go back to the main motion, and the main motion is to adopt this resolution with the amendments. Any
Chair.
discussion?
Yeah, I'm not in favor of this amendment because we have all this information. If we want the state legislature to to see this, let's just send it to them. This is, sorry. I'm sorry, it just seems redundant. I'm not sure what we're not referring to any legislation. I mean, I thought the HSAC package was to support certain types of legislation. There's no legislation attached to this. There's just reports. And if we want them to get the reports, let's just send it to them.
So that's what this resolution is.
I think it's silly.
The amendment does that, right? It sends to the legislators what to look at along with the attachment. So, members, Mr. White.
Chair, okay, you're giving me an answer, but it really wasn't a question because the resolution just urges the Legislative Reference Bureau to report to the state legislature. So I'm assuming you're just asking them to send what we're sending them to the state legislature. We can send it directly there if we really want them to have it, if they don't have it already. So I think this is a redundant, unnecessary resolution.
Thank you. Mr. White.
Thank you, Chair. I don't think it's unnecessary. It can be done in different ways. I think the resolution sends Ms. Cochran's packet to them. Ms. Cochran's packet does not include items from all 4 counties. The fact that we're sending Ms. Cochran's packet, I think, addresses the issue that the Legislative Reference Bureau is not going to get to this in time for this year's session. But by sending it to all legislators, we are making sure that they're aware of the issue, and hopefully they will ask for the Legislative Reference Bureau to follow through with the provision of additional information either during or following this next session. It's up to the legislature what they do as far as providing direction to the Legislative Reference Bureau. I don't think anything in this can be seen as anything other than encouraging the legislature and the Legislative Reference Bureau to do something. And I give Ms. Cochran credit for putting this together and getting it this far. And as I said earlier, we can go back to the initial bill requested, but my understanding is there was inadequate support to move that out. So this is the position that has been offered up in place of that. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. White. Ms. Cochran.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, and so this information actually came from the state to begin with. And I don't recall us actually voting on my reso because it was asked for further data. And so here we have the data. And I just thought the most, the best next step would be to take a vote on that original reso that I submitted with now receiving the data that helps reinforce the need for the reso that I originally proposed. So I'd like to, after we get done with this, go ahead and revisit what I originally proposed. So again, this came from the state, the information, so it seems quite strange for us to send it back to them to say, hey, read your stuff you sent here. But if that's how you want to do it, then so be it. But at this time, I think it's totally redundant, to say the least. Thank you.
Okay, Member Atai has joined us. Thank you very much. So at this time, members, we are...
I have a question.
Oh, Ms.
So the maker of all this, meaning Ms. Cochran, is saying not necessary to attach it, then we shouldn't, because she's the maker of providing all of this attachments.
She's a maker.
Actually, I think I was the one that actually made the motion to attach.
Yeah, Mr. White made the motion to attach. Based upon the new information that was provided to us. Okay, any other comments?
I just wanted to say that I would like to go back to the original resolution, since there was no vote on that, and address, because this is what the testimony was about, Chair, was about this original resolution with the bill attached. we don't, and so we're voting on something completely different that I'm not sure how, I mean, it seems a lot watered down, so I would rather do something meaningful and look at the bill with or the resolution with the original bill and send that to the legislature to deliberate on.
Okay.
Yeah,
Ms. Carvello.
Let's go back to that original resolution. Did it pass through committee or did it not?
The original resolution, which was trying to make the Maui County HSAC package, was deferred. So, and what came out of it was to keep it alive, so to speak, is this resolution, which is to urge the legislature to provide us more information. So that's what happened at the last meeting. So that is the discussion. If you remember, we also had J.D. Kim here, who testified and provided us information on this. And
so, Chair.
Yes.
So the original resolution was deferred off from the HSAC legislation. Is that what we addressed, or did we address the actual resolution in itself? And was that deferred?
I'm sorry.
Was that deferred, the original resolution? Aside from, I understand it didn't make the HSAC, but I'm trying to identify what happened with the original resolution.
So the original resolution was deferred. So as far as the item for the legislative package, the Maui County, right? We didn't make HSAC, I'm sorry. So we didn't make HSAC. So we're at the Maui County Legislative Package. So this is a way of keeping this item alive, which is the resolution before us today. So at this time, I think we have the amended resolution before us. Mr. Kushi or Shelley, do we have to vote on the amendment, which is basically to add that language to attach?
No, we already voted on the amendment, so we're back on the main motion.
Okay, the main motion is the resolution.
So, Chair.
Yes.
So what happened with the original resolution then?
It was deferred.
Right, I understand that. But usually when you defer something, then you bring it back, but it didn't come back.
So it's coming back in this form, in this resolution. It's coming back in the form that you're looking at today, which is a resolution.
So the original resolution just changed. So how did that happen? I mean, was that the committee, coming up with that wording, or was that yourself coming up with the wording?
The committee came up with this at the last meeting.
With the wording?
Of the resolution, right? So the original resolution, which was proposed by Ms. Cochran, was deferred, and then we are looking at what the committee came up with. So we are going to vote on the amended version of this resolution. So at this time, members, do we have any more discussion?
Yes, I'm still trying to vet this out. So the committee actually changed the wording and then deferred it?
So the amendment passed 6-3 to attach Ellie's data.
No, I'm talking about what happened in the previous meeting, not what just happened today. I'm saying, so I'm trying to figure out why we lost this original resolution that refers to a piece of legislation, because I don't understand if the language came from the committee, why did the committee not vote on it back then?
Because the committee did not support the original version.
The changed language. If the changed language was made by the committee, why did it get deferred? Why did the committee not vote on it then?
We voted on the item to defer it. And what came out of discussion, Ms. King, was to come up with this proposed resolution, which is what the committee put together based upon the vote that day of the last PA meeting that we took this item up. So this is what.
So this language was discussed.
This was discussed.
Because what I'm hearing is that there was, and I apologize for not being there, but what I'm hearing is that there was intent to get more information, and the information has been provided. So my understanding was that the intent was to get more information to back up the resolution. But what happened was we got the resolution changed to ask for that information, but now we have the information. So personally, I would like to go back to the resolution, because the resolution actually has some teeth in it, and it actually is asking the state legislature to do something real, to look at these changes in this bill and strengthen the the rights of the witnesses. So the victims and the Bill of Rights for victims and witnesses. If we're going to strengthen those, the best way to do it is by supporting legislation or amended legislation.
Thank you.
Not by asking them to do a report that's already been done.
Thank you.
So I'm just really
Mr. White.
confused.
Thank you, Chair. My recollection is that there was inadequate support for the bill at the last meeting because of the concerns that what the bill does, it simply opens up. The bill is very short. It simply says if a county employee who's a victim witness assistant, it basically puts them all at risk of being sued, which means the county's being sued. So if we want to put that back up for a vote, I think we need to dispose of this first. But I can't support a bill that simply puts county employees all at risk of being sued personally, which in turn additionally sues the county. So I'm sure there are other ways to adjust the law to provide for some enforcement, some other ways of providing some method of disciplinary action or something of that sort. But I can't support the bill that was in the package as proposed. And so I don't know how many will, but my recollection is in the last meeting, you did not feel there was adequate support, so this is what came of that. Mm-hmm. So let's deal with this, and then if you want to put the other one up for a vote, that's fine, but this is what came out of that last meeting, because
right.
I don't think there was adequate support from any of us to expose county employees to a lawsuit. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I think that was the discussion, and
Chair.
we also heard from Mr. Kim. Yes, Ms. Cochran.
Yeah, so without a vote, I think it's very difficult to say whether it got support or not. It got deferred. The question left on the floor was more data. Lo and behold, here's the data. So I think that going back to the original deferred reso is the appropriate step. And we all are at risk of being sued at every given moment, no matter what. So that's not going to change. And my question right now is actually for Mr. Kushi, if it's right or legal or whatever to push forward something into the legislative package that doesn't have a bill attached. It's just urging to get some data, which we actually have sitting in front of us. So what is this that we're trying to do? And is it something that's right to push forward in a legislative package?
I believe we do not. This is not going to meet the legislative package.
Is there a way to get Mr. Kushi's comment at this time?
These resolutions that you are urging the state legislature or the state reference bureau has no force or effect in law. It's just urging whatever separate body to do what you think is right. I hope that answers your question.
So the question is, yes, it's okay to push something into the legislative package without a bill attached.
And whether they do it or not, you cannot force them.
Yeah, I'm not going to think about that, but okay. Which to me, legislative package should have some legislation, and that's what my reso had originally, and it should be put on the floor for an up or down by every individual member here, and not just being said that it was recalled that it had no support. So we can dispose of this, and I shall look for a motion.
Okay, so at this time, I'm going to take a vote, before us is we are voting on this resolution, and with the amendment, urging the State of Hawaii Legislative Reference Bureau to report to the state legislature on the level of enforcement for each county's victims witness assistance program with amendments. So members, any more discussion?
Sorry, and real quickly, Chair, if I recall, you mentioned that this is revising or amending the original reso. And how did that happen? Because you're explaining to Ms. King that this is an answer to the discussion that occurred last. I was there. I don't recall that. So you mean committee, like in your office committee work? Because it didn't happen on the floor.
It happened on the floor in this committee.
No.
And Mr. Hokama is the one who made this recommendation instead of killing this bill, basically, to keep it alive so that it can be discussed further. I wish he was here to talk about his intention, but it was intended so this resolution would be created so that the legislature could further look into this victim rights bill. So that was the intent of the discussion. Do you remember Mr. Hokama mentioning this?
Yes,
Okay.
I recall him wanting more data.
Right.
Not amending and revising and writing new language or anything of that sort, no.
So this is the answer to what was discussed in our last meeting.
Here's my answer, the data, the actual facts and numbers that he wanted.
Thank you. Yeah, at this time, I'd like to call for the vote. So at this time, I'd like to call for the vote on the resolution before you. Members, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
So 3 no, 2 excused, 5-4 approve. So this
Wait,
means
what?
four of us approve of the resolution, and there's 3 against, 2 excused. So the motion fails. Mr. Kushi,
Yes.
how do we proceed?
I have a motion.
Do we?
I have a motion.
Oh yeah, we can take our morning break. It's 11
Lunch break
o'clock.
almost.
PEA meeting now comes back to order. At this time, members, I'm hearing from you that you want to vote on the proposal as proposed by Ms. Cochran for the Maui County Legislative Package, not the HSAC package, right? So we're actually going to vote on her proposed legislation, which is listed on the agenda. And so it's PA 41 approving for inclusion in the 2018 Maui County Legislative Package, a state bill relating to the enforcement of the Basic Bill of Rights of Victims and Witnesses. So members, I'm going to bring up the main motion as I've been hearing you express an interest. Any discussion?
Chair, so you need a motion?
I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Cochran and second by Ms. King. Okay, we're clear, members, right? We're voting on the proposed legislation that was given to us, which started this whole discussion from Ms. Cochran on this. So at this time, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, so I hear Ellie Cochran, Kelly King. Oh, roll call.
Roll call vote, Vice Chair Carvello.
Is original legislation. So we're voting on the original legislation that was submitted for the Maui County
Yes.
Legislative Package. So your support? Okay.
Member Carroll. Member Atai.
Yes.
Chair White. Member Cochran,
Aye.
and Member King,
Aye.
and Chair Sugimura.
No.
There are 5 ayes, 2 noes, 2 excused, Member Hokama and Member Guzman.
Okay, motion passes. So, members, that closes our whole discussion we've had on this item, and we can now move on to our last item on our agenda, which is establishing additional qualifications for county administrative heads appointed by the mayor, which is PA 27. We have David Underwood here today for this item. We are looking at, by correspondence dated October 10, 2017, the Department of Corporation Counsel transmitting a revised proposed bill entitled A Bill for an Ordinance Establishing Additional Qualifications for the Director of Public Works and Director of Environmental Management. So we're looking at these two proposed qualifications only. We're starting with this, members. This is our 3rd time that we're discussing it, so it is not a new item, although I'm sure you must have questions on it. So, members, put all my things away. In Granicus, we are looking at legislation 101027 in case any of you have questions regarding the revised bill. And anyone have any comments on it? Oh, sorry, Ms. King.
Thank you, Chair. I'm, the description, first of all, I wanted to clarify that this needs to go on the ballot because it's a charter amendment. Is that correct?
It was done already. So this is an answer to the charter amendment and the vote that was taken last year.
Well, if we're trying to change the qualifications which are in the charter, then that would be an additional charter amendment, I believe, wouldn't it,
No.
Mr. Kushi?
So just for clarification, Committee Report 16-110 dated July 15, 2016. I read through that, and there was a proposed resolution proposing an amendment to the revised charter of the County of Maui as amended to require council approval of the mayor's amendments of department directors and allowing the council to initiate removal of department directors and also to allow additional qualifications for department directors. So as
Okay,
you know,
so
that was on the ballot.
So we can put the additional qualifications into the charter?
No.
We're authorized or not? So this is not for the charter?
The charter gave us authorization to do this by ordinance, so that's what we're doing today.
Okay. So we're looking at an ordinance, amending an ordinance.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. I guess my biggest concern is that there's no mention of experience in the field that the directors are the Public Works Director or the Environmental Management Director are overseeing. And so that's my concern. When you look at in the charter, it outlines that the planning director has to have a minimum of 5 years of experience in the field of planning. There's no requirement for Public Works or Department of Environmental Management in either the charter or your proposal that they have experience in their field.
Thank you. So in the proposed legislation before you, under 2.14.020, Director of Public Works shall have the following minimum qualifications. Number 1, as set forth in the charter, 5 years of experience in administrative capacity, either in public service or private business or both. Number 2, as a part of or in addition to 5 years of administrative experience, 3 years of responsible managerial and budgetary experience. And number 3, a bachelor's degree from an accredited college or university in engineering, business administration, public administration, or other relevant discipline or a combination of education and work experience substantially equivalent to such a bachelor's degree. So that's what's the proposed legislation. And the Director of Environmental Management is also being discussed.
Right. So I guess my concern would be that we insert somewhere in there that 3 years of responsible managerial and budgetary experience in the field of public works, and then the director of environmental management in the field of environmental management.
So you're looking for a employee that comes from the department?
Well, it doesn't have to be an employee that comes from the department. When you hire a director, oftentimes they're people that come from outside of the county administration.
Okay.
I mean, they can be either. I mean, I think we need to leave our options open. But I do strongly feel that that's one of the things that's lacking in our guidance, is making sure that folks have experience in their field.
Anyone else? Mr. White.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with what Ms. King is saying. My only hesitation is that in looking at somebody like Ford Fujigami, our director of the State Department of Transportation up until a couple of weeks ago, I don't believe he had a transportation background, but I believe he's been one of the most effective transportation directors that we've had in many years. So I understand where she's coming from, and I agree with the sentiment, but I'm just concerned that may eliminate somebody who may have some very good experiences in their background that helps them administer a complicated department that we might be passing up. So I agree, but I'm kind of hesitant to make
Chair,
a change.
Can I just respond to that real quickly?
Ms. King.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that Mr. Fujigami was Deputy Director of Transportation before he became director, so he did have direct experience in that.
Do you recall for how long?
No, but I can ask him.
So I believe that
I think it was
Mr.
quite a while he worked in
Fujikami
that
is
department.
very good big picture. And I remember when he was, when this governor was elected, he actually came from the sitting county of Honolulu, and he was doing more like big picture stuff. Like I remember one of the things he told me he was now responsible for is the zoo was under his kuleana with that new position that he had with the sitting county of Honolulu until he went to the DOT. But I hear what you're saying, because you don't want to exclude possible candidates by being too narrow, and I think that if you think about sitting in your seats and looking at possible candidates for the future, you want to be able to have alternatives, is what I hear you say, Mr. White, and I really agree with you, and yet I understand what Ms. King is saying too. Mr. Alika Atai.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with both members, King and White. In concept, the application of a director and a deputy director, and in tandem, yeah, I don't know how you can word it so that in tandem, either one of these guys got actual field experience in, for example, in here, Public Works, whether it be the deputy director and or the director, at the same time, in tandem, in that team, and one of those individuals should have experience in business administration or public administration. So to only focus that the director must also have that in-field experience discipline, I would look at it of us expanding it and saying, okay, this team of a director and a deputy director will meet all of these requirements, in addition, actually have experience in that particular field. I don't know how we could word that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Fujigami, Ford was deputy director from 2011. So his experience was from 2011. As far as what you're saying, this came up in our last discussion about how do you handle deputies. And I wonder if Mr. Kushi, if you could give us insight as to how do you handle deputies in this legislation based upon what the charter mandated?
In your proposed legislation, you don't. Deputies are not covered, except when you come up to bat for the Department of Water Supply, which is the only deputy that is appointed by the mayor himself or herself or itself.
Yes. So, Mr. White.
No,
Oh,
sorry.
thank you. So basically, your concern about how to handle deputies and the teamwork, basically, of how they participate together did come up in discussion the last time. Mr. White.
Would it be possible to say something along the lines of, if the deputy has no experience, of course, the deputy is not appointed until the...
Yeah.
The directors first.
Yeah.
Chair.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Ms. King.
no, I think we need to make sure that our directors have experience in their field. Unless we want to remove it from the planning director, it's in the charter, 5 years of experience in the field of planning. I think this is a good idea if you want to drop it to 3 years, but I think that's one of the things that makes Ford Fujigami so good at his job. His previous job was that he had years of experience in the DOT, and when he became director, he drew upon that experience as well as his broader experience. But to get people who are in a totally unrelated field to start heading up these departments, that's been a little distressing to me. And it's a general feeling out there in the public that people should be qualified in the field that they're directing for the department that they manage.
Thank you. Ms. Crivello.
So with this, we're looking at the qualifications, but I would think when we consider, we also look at the, I guess, the duties and functions of the director, supposedly like of Public Works, and I would, and when we say Public Works, it involves building, housing, subdivision, approve subdivision plans, and et cetera, maintain the county highways, drainage, and flood control systems. So do we also want to, are we just going to generically say previous experience in the field of public works, or to identify what the, to address the actual functions as such?
That's a good point. So if you look in your charter on page 23 for Chapter 5, which is Department of Public Works, also included under Section 8-5.3, Powers, Duties, and Functions, and it addresses your concerns. So Director of Public Works shall, and there's like 4 things listed, and the same thing on page number 36 in our charter, Chapter 15, Department of Environmental Management.
Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, I do recognize that.
Yeah.
That's why I brought that up in relations to the Department of Public Works and its director. So that's already stated in there with the charter.
Yes.
So what I'm trying to address is Councilmember King's suggestion. How shall we do it with what you're proposing and what's already in
So,
the
Member Crivello, so I think if what I'm hearing you say is that you're saying to reference this section of the charter. Is that what you're saying, Sue? To
No, I'm
reference it
trying
in
to
the
get
description?
clarification from what Councilmember King is proposing in relation to what we already have existing in the charter.
Right.
Thank you.
So what
Ms.
I'm
King.
proposing, and we have to do this by ordinance, not in the charter, but if you look at page 26, section 8-8.2, Planning Director, there's a paragraph up there where it specifies 5 years of experience in the field of planning before it goes into powers, duties, and functions, so that you're ensuring you get somebody who could do these things, rather than just an appointment who, may have some managerial experience, and some of them have not had 5 years of managerial experience, but they've been appointed anyway. So that's what I'm proposing, is to put that into in that top paragraph, not in the powers, duties, and functions, but to put it into in the ordinance, a description of right here it says the Director of Public Works shall have the following minimum qualifications. And so whether we add it to the first or second, but I think it needs to say minimum of 3 years in the field of public works. And the same thing for environmental management, minimum of 3 years in the field of environmental management, experience.
I can support that as long as we also have it in experience in administrative capacity,
right,
or what have
right.
you. It's just to expand it further.
It's just to say that they need to have that experience in the field, in that department. And there are actually 5 departments that don't have that right now, that don't have a requirement to be to have experience in the field. So, I think we should add those to all those departments. It's Public Works, Parks and Rec, Housing and Human Concerns, Transportation, and Environmental Management. That none of those require experience in your field. I mean, today I know we're just looking at these 2, so.
Thank you. If I hear what you're saying, then for 2.14.020, Director of Public Works, number 1, as set forth in the charter, 5 years of experience in the field of public works in an administrative capacity, either in public service or private business or both.
Chair, I don't know. I'm almost thinking that it needs to be in Section 2 because it's actually not set forth in the charter unless we have the authority to change the charter, which maybe Mr. Kushi can comment on. Because that statement is set forth in the charter. If you look at the charter, it's not in there.
Mr. Kushi.
But we're doing
do we have the authority to make that change in the charter as well?
In the ordinance.
Generally, no. You got to go through a charter amendment, but.
Sorry, it goes in number 2.
2.14.0201 is just a reaffirmation as far as what's set forth in that charter.
Right.
Number 2 and 3 are your additions.
Right. Yes, so I think I would go in number 2.
If you want to mess around some more, you got to look at number 2 or educational in number 3. Now, my comment would be this: 5 years of experience or 3 years of experience for when I take it in public works. What is public works? It's a broad definition. But you look at the powers, duties, and functions, it kind of describes public works as building, housing, subdivision, planning, design, roads, drainage systems, etc. That kind of stuff could be deemed public works.
So we can maybe make it.
If you want to expand it, then you'd have to put it in, I would think, the number 2 category.
Right.
But again, these are additional qualifications by ordinance. As a practical matter, when this person comes up to bat before this body, I think at that time it's appropriate for you to say, can you perform the powers, duties, and functions? And in the interview process, is everything's subjective. If you make it so objective, you might as well not have an approval process. Just check off the blank, check off the boxes. But again, it's up to this body. What do you want to, whatever you want to do.
I would agree with you if I didn't, if I hadn't had experience of that people coming up here for our approval and then hearing, well, that's all it says in the charter or the description. So, to me, if we put it in here, then that's a statement that we want people who are experienced in their field. They're going to be the director of a department, for heaven's sakes. They should have a background in that department, in the subject matter. And, if we put in the field of public works, then, yeah, it is up to the council members to look at those function and duties and say, we agree, each one of us agrees that they have that 3 years of experience or they don't have that 3 years of experience. But at least let's describe it. Let's give the public a comfort level that we're looking for qualified people in their field.
Thank you. So, members, would you be agreeable to possibly reference section 8 point, like we were talking about Department of Public Works, reference section 8.8-5.3, which is PAR's duties and functions. It's already in the charter, but mention it here so that when we do go through this approval process for qualifications, that these are the types of PAR's duties and functions that will be anticipated from that person. Instead of saying in the field of public works, because then the question came up, what is public works? So I wonder if looking at the fields or referencing what is in the charter to be more specific might take us to where we want. Open for discussion.
Chair, I would suggest maybe we refer to the charter and just say in the field of public works as described in the county charter, powers, duties, and functions.
So any thoughts on that? Is that going to take us to where we want to go, or is this too narrow?
If it's too narrow, then we're in trouble. It's in the charter already.
I'm trying to, I don't have the charter in front of me, but you're saying 5 years of relevant experience relating to items under the powers, duties, and responsibilities as outlined in the charter or something of that sort?
Actually, it would be number 2.
Yeah. Can you give him? Yeah, thanks.
Under 2.14.020, it would say, as a part or in addition to the 5 years of administrative experience, 3 years of responsible managerial and budgetary experience in the field of public works, as described in the powers, duties, and functions of this office in the county charter.
So it's page 23 in the charter. I kind of like that because it takes us back to.
It makes it broader.
Yeah, it makes it back to the source. Yeah.
I think I'm okay with that, Chair.
You okay with that, Kelly?
Yes.
So members, what we're looking at, based upon this discussion then, in Director of Public Works 2.14.020 on point number or paragraph number 2, as a part of or in addition to the 5 years of administrative experience, 3 years of responsible managerial and budgetary experience in the field of public works as described in the powers, duties, and functions.
In the county charter, section 8-5.3.
Mr. Kushi. Yeah, sorry. Mr. Kushi.
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
Is this body thinking of doing another section? Because subsection 2, it was thought to be important that out of the 5 years of administrative experience, 3 of which shall be responsible managerial and budgetary experience, because directors go through budget process. Now you're saying, in addition to the 3 years, you want another 3 years.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Of functioning.
No, that was, no, I think we want 3 years of responsible managerial and budgetary experience in the field of public works, as described in section 8-5.2, I'm sorry, 5.3, powers, duties, and functions. Okay. So that means, if they're heavy on number 1 but not on number 2, they can it's still okay. They just have to have 3 years of experience in some of those powers, duties, and functions.
So, Mr. Kushi, are we, by doing this and legally, the way that you're looking at it, are we then changing the intent of the paragraph? Are you suggesting maybe we create like another paragraph to be
Madam
clear?
Chair, because number 2 is specifically managerial and budgetary experience.
Correct.
Such qualifying experience may not apply to a subdivision, planning subdivision work. So, if you want experience in that level, maybe 3 out of the 5 years should be in that level, whether it was a manager or a budgetary field. That may be a close call. In any event, you need to defer this and submit another proposal.
Version. Okay. I like that idea. I like the discussion to where it's going. And if we need to then maybe add another point to it or in item number 4, just so that we could be clear, because this is so important. So members, are you agreeable to that so that we can have another pass at this at the next meeting? If we can, Mr. White.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think it may be better if we add another number 3. I mean, add a number 3 and push 3 to 4.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Underwood, thank you for being here. I didn't ask you to speak earlier. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just as a practical matter, just a caution. If we're going to say that we're defining public works as experience in the functional areas outlined in the charter, the charter, those functional areas are administering the building, housing, and subdivision ordinances. Second one is approving proposed subdivision plans. Third is plan, design, build, and maintain counties' highways and drainage and flood control systems. If you're defining public works as that work experience, you're really narrowing your pool. You may not get somebody coming from the state. You may not get somebody coming from another county. So you just may want to be careful in how that language is drafted. Just
That's
a suggestion.
So, Mr. Underwood.
Maybe in the disciplines mentioned, but not. I agree with his concern that we don't want to say you have to have administered building and housing subdivision ordinances, approved subdivisions, et cetera, because that you're only going to be able to pick previous public works directors. Then you're going to run out of them at some point.
Right. So how do we then proceed? I think that's very good advice, Mr. Underwood. Members, can we then, I'm going to defer this and look for your input, and we'll add in another section on that to try to get us to where I hear you want us to get to, and we'll take this up on the next PA meeting. I'm going to assume that the same thing will apply for the environmental management and for other related departments that have similarities like that are not as specific in terms of qualifications. Like with Corp Counsel, you need to be an attorney, as well as the prosecuting attorney or other, or planning. Finance was financial positions or experience. That was pretty clear on that. But for the departments that do not have that, that we'll look at that in terms of adding something in once we can get concurrence with. I think Mr. Underwood's input is really valuable, as well as Mr. Kushi, because he's taking us down the path of what we need to think in terms of being broader minded, so we can get the best candidates forward for us. So members, at this time then, do we have any more discussion on this? See none. I'm going to defer this and bring this up at the next meeting so we can talk about the qualifications. And we'll look at possibly bringing up those other departments that have similar situations so that we can talk about it all in one package. Appreciate it. Very good discussion, members. At this time, I'm going to be deferring this to come up again, and our meeting is now adjourned.